think layouts are a very misunderstood skill in the tumbling community. I would say most coaches teach layouts as the start of twisting skills instead of an improvement on tucks. When I was tumbling, layouts were my worst skill by far. And spinning skills are one of my favorite parts of tumbling. My body started to figure things out once I started spinning, because your body needs to do things a certain way when you spin that you don't necessarily need to do when you're not. Over the last 10 to 15 years of coaching and tumbling, I've found 5 really big improvements that I think if most tumblers add them to their layouts, you will have a much easier and a much better flowing layout to help you on your way to spinning skills. Improvement number 1 will be to lift more in your round off or your back handspring before you do your layout. One of the concepts I try to get through to my tumblers early is that your power is a replacement of technique. If you are doing every part of every skill the way it was taught and the way it was supposed to be, you won't need any power to get you through. Perfect technique requires 0 power unless you're doing an extremely difficult skill. A lot of tumblers want to power into their round off and into their back handspring, pushing their momentum forward and down instead of helping lift the body away from the floor to help them get more natural height when they start entering into their layout. If you're taking your round off or your back handspring backwards, then you're gonna have to force the layout up, and that's gonna create a resistance in your flip, which will force you to pike over and change your shape or make you over rotate. Focusing on the up parts of your round off and your back handspring allow you to enter more in the direction that you want to go for your layout, which is backwards, so that you're lifting out of the round off and entering the flip with, again, more flow. More flow in your flip is going to allow you to create the shape that you want without resisting the body and forcing it to use more flip. The most important actions in your round off, your back handspring, and your layout are the ones that are pulling you away from the floor. This leads into improvement number 2. You want to be pulling from your spine the moment you push off your hands when you're going into the punch. Pulling from the spine allows your body to enter into the layout and every other flipping skill with a more symmetrical approach. Creating this shape the moment you are pushing off your hands is like creating the shape of an arrow before you put it into the bow. I always compare tumbling to archery because you want to have the shape created before it is released, not after. Applying the pull from your spine after you are pulling up out of your round off and your back handspring is going to create a more up and over pull into your layout, which is the best, most flowing way you can get into any of your flips. This also helps avoid 2 of the biggest problems when starting and learning layouts, which is throwing the head back and arching. If the body has already created the shape that you want going into the layout, then there won't be any need to pull that head back or arch the body to help the flip more. From the push to the punch to the pull with the spine, now you've created enough shape to help the body enter the layout and get more flip without having to use the upper body to flip more. This helps tumblers now get into a better layout position, using their toes more comfortably and helping them get to a landing without over-rotating. If a tumbler had to choose between piking or arching, they would rather just pike because you're already using your toes, and once a tumbler arches anyways, once that body arches into the layout just enough, they're gonna have to still use their toes to pike over into the landing. Getting rid of that arch completely from the entrance of the layout is the best way to help teach tumblers how to get into a better shape and use their layout the correct way. Moving on from the entrance of the layout, the next improvement is actually while you're flipping, and it's actually the idea of maintaining that shape all the way up until the landing of the layout. There are 3 important moments during the layout that your direction matters to keep the flow going the way that you want. The entrance of the layout is back, proceeding to the toes, which want to go up. And then from there, after there's a moment, once the toes go over just enough, you want to keep lifting all the way until the landing, and then pull the body away from the floor back in the direction that you were already going. So technically it would go back, up, back. Once the tumbler has entered into their layout position, keeping the ribs and the hips back is very important to keeping the body in the correct shape and not allowing the hips to go forward, creating an arch or pushing the body in the wrong direction for their flip. You would never ever want your hips in front of your toes, so the ribs and hips pulling in the same direction as the spine again keeps the body flowing in the right direction and in the right shape. Even as the tumbler is entering their landing, The body wants to be pulling from the hips and the ribs backwards to keep the landing from going forward and making the tumbler touch down or fall towards their knees. These corrections are very similar to a flyer, so that way they don't fall forward on the end of the stunt and use too much of their toes, instead keeping the body in a nice symmetrical hollow form above the stunt. Flyers usually have a fast track to beautiful layouts. Another improvement is to help get rid of a lot of the over-rotating that I see in so many tumblers when they are learning and even mastering layout. Once the body is in the hollow position, all the way in the layout to the point where it's about to land, the moment the toes are about 60 or 70% over, the body can start lifting in what I call parachute technique. The idea of a parachute technique is that you are going to be pulling your body away from the floor even as your toes start coming down. This helps generate more weight up and not towards the floor, and gets rid of a lot of the piking and over flipping that comes from trying to get the toes in too much. I tell my tumblers that on any landings on any of their flips, your toes should never go to 6 o'clock, because once they go to 6 o'clock, now once the body finishes its lift, your toes might end up at 7 o'clock or more, now already making you over rotate to your back. Starting that hollow at about 2 o'clock and then keeping that hollow and forcing it more up once the feet get to about 5 o'clock is going to help create a way better landing and help you get a better sit and stand if you're a gymnast, and help you get cleaner landings if you're a cheerleader. There shouldn't be a huge need to absorb and put a lot of the weight on your knees and your ankles if you're using this technique on your landings, because you're already taking a lot of that weight off before you get your feet to the floor, and you're continuing that process after your feet get to the floor. This saves tumblers a lot of wear and tear on the most important body parts that usually wear down because of these techniques not being implemented all the way up into their harder skills. If you tumble on hard floor, this is even more important for you, so that way you're not adding so much weight and increasing the pounding and pain that comes from tumbling on hard floors. My last improvement, and it's one of the biggest myths that I've had to destroy over my whole career of teaching tumbling, is not dropping your arms down when you're doing your layouts. So many tumblers and coaches believe that a layout has to have this drop down layout mummy position. Nothing that is aerodynamic is flat. The goal of the body when initiating technical shapes is to be more aerodynamic, thus eliminating the resistances when flipping. If the body is trying to go up and over this way, and then the toes are trying to come up into this way, and then the arms are dropping down the opposite direction, it's going to create the resistance that the body is trying not to have when it's doing its flip. One of the other bigger problems that I see when arms start dropping down in layouts is when the hips start going forward into the arms, creating an even flatter shape and not allowing the toes to get that more aerodynamic flip that you want when you're using your toes for the layout. Now, if you're a power tumbler and you're a gymnast and you're working on double layouts, then this is totally different for you. But for most tumblers that will never ever do that skill, creating that bowl shape with more rounded from the inside is going to allow the body to keep that shape once it's in the layout and allow it to flip without having to change that shape for more flip later. Once the body begins flipping, those hips are going to want to drive forward even more, and the body's going to want to try to arch even more, and so you're helping that body get. So those problems that are starting to show in your layout are going to increase even more when you begin fulls and doubles. While some tumblers can make a very flat and arms down layout look very, very good, and they have no problem going into their spinning skills with that technique, that is not the majority of tumblers. If you teach technique solely for a good layout, then you're going to be seeing a lot of the problems once you get into your spinning skills for fulls and doubles. While there are coaches that will attest to teaching their layouts the way that they do, that's totally fine. Everybody has their way. But I know that when I'm teaching my tumblers all the way up into their spinning skills, these are the corrections that I think help avoid a lot of the problems, not just in flipping skills for tucks and layouts, but also as they get into the more elite skills like fulls, doubles, 1.5s, and even in the more advanced trick passes that require Arabians and front tumbling to apply some of these same technical improvements. As a recap, you want to lift more in your roundoffs and your back hamstring before you enter into your layouts. You want to begin pulling on that spine to help you get into a more symmetrical shape before you even punch for that layout, helping you create a better shape for your flip. Once you enter in that layout, you want to keep your ribs and your hips back avoiding the hips driving forward and creating a flat flip, and keeping you from using your toes and creating a better flipping shape for your layup. Once toes are about 60 to 70% over or about the 2 o'clock position, you want to begin hollowing up or using the parachute technique, so that way you can help increase a better landing. And then now once the toes get to about 5 o'clock, continuing that shape in the right direction, keeping the weight off your knees and your ankles on landings and help avoiding the wear and tear. Lastly, we do not want to drop our arms down in any part of the layout. We want to continue that shape going all the way into the layout from the moment the body pulls back from the spine, keeping the ribs and the hips back, allowing the toes to go all the way over, and then again pulling the body away from the hollow instead of towards the hips and towards the arms. We want to keep an aerodynamic shape in our layout and not be flat, and then making the body have more resistances in the air. I believe if you apply even just one of these corrections to your layouts, you will have a much better shape and much better flow in your flip, allowing you to do these layouts much easier and helping you get to fulls and doubles a lot quicker. Make sure you are getting professional training from professional coaches, and also be sure to make safety the #1 priority. Get to work and good luck. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope you all learned something. Please leave a like, and I want you to comment what is the hardest part about layouts for you. If you're not subscribed, please make sure to hit that big red button for future videos, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.